Hello and welcome to the Advanced Zav Mapmaker tutorial covering the event system. As this is an advanced tutorial, the map has already been done and previously set up so that we can jump right into the event system. The event button is located right over here, so let's go into the overview. This gives you an overview of the events, which includes the events that you currently have, which are at 0. We can add more of them. We can also remove them, or we can go back to editing our map. We include several overviews of different sections. These include the ifs, the effects, the repeats, the goal basics, the win info, and the win criteria. So let's get into covering each section. The ifs are what are required before an event will fire properly. So we have different if events that we can have, and I will cover them basically. You have your on-turn events, which include your do on turn, do after turn, and do before turn. The reason to have it happen for a certain player is in case you, for instance, want a cutscene to spawn on player 4's turn, or you want some other event that happens delayed to a specific player. So we can, for instance, select the Redneck Survivors, which would be relatively needless because they're the first one, or the Preppers, which means it would wait until the Prepper's turn before doing something, or the New American Conglomerate, meaning it would wait very close to the end of the turn before doing anything, but before the end of the turn, because end of the turn is considered as after the American Conglomerate's turn. You also have other ifs, such as the kill everything if, which will happen after everyone except for one player or one alliance, I should more accurately state, is dead. This is good if you want to spawn a cutscene at the end of a game, just to inform players that they've won, or to have an outro cinematic. You also have the conquest location ifs. This will allow you to have a specific event happen only if a specific place is taken. So, for instance, we could specify that if the Redneck Survivors take, right here at the bottom, Uncle Bill's Gun Museum, a specific event such as increasing their strength by 30% will happen. This will be your most common event, for instance, in the general risk map. If someone takes over all of the towns of North America, you can have bonus troops spawn in for them. Another event is the Army Strength event, which is somewhat more confusing to get into. This allows you, if someone is stronger or weaker than everyone else, by a specific number of troops, or a percentage of troops, so 5 troops or 5% more troops, the people who are compared players are the people who will go on to the event list to be allowable as specials, and the special compare is for everyone else. So you could, for instance, have it where the Redneck Survivors and the Preppers, whoever out of these two has more troops, will get even more troops or less troops or a debuff or a buff. But you could include the New American Conglomerate as a comparer, so that if they have even more troops than either of these ones, that won't spawn, but the Conglomerate will not get that. This is useful for creating a handicap, or for creating something where if someone's stronger than the AI, it will work for them, but the AI is not counted until they are stronger than the AI. And you can add it as a success or a failure, meaning that if you want everyone who is not the strongest on the map to receive a buff, you would specify stronger, either number or percentage, so we'll go with 50% in this case. And then we would specify add those who failed to the event special list, which means that everyone who does not have everyone who is not 50% stronger than everyone else will be added to this to receive either a buff, a debuff, a cutscene, or something. As well, you have the 3 options at the bottom, which cover whether or not players are active, alive, or alliances are active or alive. The player alive is very useful for specifying early on whether or not a specified amount of players are there, and changing how a map works. You might want, if there are 4 players, a map to work a specific way, or if there are 8 players, a map to work another way. And this is a very good way to check using it. Or you might want a map to change once players start dying off. If you make an AI driven map, or if you make a map where you have seats of power and players turn on or off for specified amounts of turn depending on if powerful locations are taken, your if active players is a very good thing to check. It works nearly the same way as the player alive or dead count. Granted, it lets you add people to successes, since obviously dead players can't succeed. As well as that, you also have your alliance count, which lets you have an if event happen, but only if a specified amount of alliances are dead or alive. This is useful for making remaining players stronger, for instance, as players die off. It's also very useful if you want to win a map, if there are only 2 alliances left, kind of like a Hunger Games type game. You also have your effect system. If all of the if events that you have, and you can have multiple of them, are met, then this effect will happen on that turn. The first effect is the cutscene, which allows you to specify what dialogue, as well as what image, to which none are loaded right now, will be shown for the player if all of the ifs are met. The second effect that you can have is spawning in an army. You can specify the strength of the army. You have to specify a new city. You can specify the same city as the event that you have, or you can specify it as the if event that you have, or a different one. So you can have it where Uncle Bill's gun shop, if it's taken, spawns in troops on a completely different city or on itself. You can have it target the owner, which is the person that owns the city as well as all of his allies. Everyone who is not allied with the person who owns the city. You can have it spawn on specifically the city itself. You can have it spawn for everyone, so if a specific town is taken, everyone gets troops. You can have it spawn for specific players, or you can use your special players, which were in the army the army percentage screen from the last page, as well as the players active and the players dead. You also have your player on or off effect, which can be specified for a certain amount of turn. You can specify whether or not it's on or off, and it works in the same way as the other one does for the city. Meaning that if you can specify where if a specific town is taken, a certain number of other players are turned off. This allows you to control AI maps, as well as to make some strange maps, such as ones where you would consider a certain town a castle, and if someone takes a castle, it turns a player off for 5 or 6 turns. That way, the person is replicating, clamoring for a new king, for instance. This is all taken care of from this menu. You also have your alter difficulty, which again works off of towns in the same way as the last 2 did. And it allows you to specify a certain number of turns and a certain percentage stronger or weaker that a person will be, with increase or decrease. The percentage stronger or weaker is how many bonus troops will spawn for that person. So increasing the strength of a player by 200% will mean that generally 2 more troops will spawn for them. So this is a good way to make it if players leave, or if the map gets smaller, or if a person is weaker than everyone else, they get more troops. This is generally what it will be used for. You also have your buff effect at the bottom, which allows you to either specify a buff increase or a buff decrease, again working off of towns the same as the last 2. And it allows you to specify how many turns, the strength of the increase or decrease, and whether the buff is an immobilize or is a buff. The buff is a combat strength buff, meaning troops work stronger, or fight stronger, whereas the immobilize, it simply prevents someone from moving. Special to the buffs is the ability to stack, refresh, or cleanse events for the buffs. This means that if you specify a stack, for instance, it will apply it multiple times, but they will decay based on whenever they were first applied. So applying a 3-turn a 3-turn buff every turn of 50% bonus combat strength that stacks. Means that once it's turned off, if it requires a town be taken, once that town is no longer owned by the person, every turn after 3 turns, you will start getting weaker. Whereas refresh does not allow it to stack. It does not allow it to go to a second one. On the next turn, it will just refresh its duration up to 3 turns instead of giving you a second buff of 50% to 100% as the stack does. Cleanse removes all of them. This is very useful for taking out buffs whenever a person loses or gains cities. Normally they will stay there, giving the other person a bonus, whoever takes the city from the first player a bonus. Whereas with Cleanse, it means that it will remove all of them, removing the bonus and applying it again to the person that's supposed to have it. Your repeat events are once every specified number of turns with a specified number of repeats. You could make it so that the first person to the middle of the map, every 5 turns, but only twice, gets a large surplus of troops, meaning that this is a very desirable objective to fight over. Whereas instead, you can make it so that every turn forever, everyone gets 1 bonus troop as long as half the map is taken. Every occurrence means that if we specify that 4 territories have to be taken, and we specify every occurrence, it means that if ever one of those territories, in all taking risk as a standard example, if ever if you own North America, you get 10 troops. At every occurrence, that means that it won't happen the next turn unless someone takes a city and you take that city back, giving you the option to do large areas that people will constantly fight over. You also have goal basics, which allow you to change basic options for the goals. The first one is a secondary event. A secondary event means that it can turn other events on. You have to have more than one event. All events that turn on have to be secondaries, meaning that there will be one secondary event with 0 expected activations so that it starts off activated. You can have this event, for instance, event number 2, activate event number 1. When you go back to event number 1, you'll see that it expects 1 activation. This just shows you a summary. You might have an event that is activated by more than a certain number of events. For instance, if 5 different towns are taken, activate this, but you want it to fire when 3 are taken. So you might see 5 activations and expect only 1. Right now we'd expecting 1, which means 100% of the prior events must be fired. You can have a goal be failable or be non-failable. Non-failable means that it will display as green whenever it is active and yellow whenever it is not. A failable goal, which is good if you have a goal that fires only once to show that it is no longer up. It will show in red. You can have it repeat activations, which is for the secondary menu again, where after, for instance, a specific town is taken 10 times, you might want it to increase or decrease in strength. That would be what repeat activation is good for. You also have visible options, which allows you to select whether who this is visible to. This lets you make similar events for multiple different players, custom tailored to that player, having specific city names or specific racial names, for instance. You can also make it so that it is an invisible event that no one knows, which can be good for a hidden or an Easter egg. Your win info, I'll go here first and activate your win criteria. Your win info shows your description, which may be as simple as take 5 cities, which just lets people know what they need to do to get this event. This allows you to get fairly complex with your events without having a very large system-generated description. As well, you also have your win text. If this is a win event, meaning that after it is fired, this will end up finishing the game with a win, you can say what you want for the win. You could say, for instance, "You have won. Aren't you special?" Being a little bit cynical. You also have your inserts at the top. Your inserts allow you to insert into wherever you are right now a specific piece of code. The code will generate whatever it specifies here. I'm using the word specific a lot. In this case, it will show the current player name. So you could have it say, for instance, you have one, aren't you special, Jim, if Jim is that player's name. You also have your win criteria, which works kind of like your if events work. You have a last man standing. You have your specials, which was covered again in the army strength, as well as the players active, players inactive. Conquest objectives, meaning that if someone takes a specific town or 5 specific towns, they win the game. Specific army strength, just like discussed in the ifs, players alive or players dead, or alliance count. This allows you to set up some fairly complex win criterias. And that's about all of the events for right now. This event system will get more complex over time, and this is an as-is tutorial and overview of the upcoming game Zav's event system. And now we'll see a simple overview of creating a cutscene event from scratch. So we have our event number 16 in this map, and we will rename it simply to 16 with Rancher Lane cutscene afterwards to find it very easily. Now we will add the conquest location. We're adding the redneck survivors so that it only checks redneck survivors. As this is a story map, this will be our only human player. We will also add Rancher Lane, which is right here. And now we'll start adding the cutscenes. As you can see, we do have some cutscene items already put in. We are missing, however, one. You can very quickly select it from here. These are all shorthand name right now. CS for cargo ship and for Ma, PG for prepper girl. You would obviously be naming them longer in ways that you can easily identify them. This is just easy for me and fast. Then you can click at the bottom here to add new frames. This is the amount of frames that you have. Frames are played in sequential order. And now that we're done, I will actually read back to you this cutscene that we've just made so that you can get a taste of the humor in the story. The survivor has just taken over a place called Rancher's Lane. So the survivor starts off saying, moo, 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 moo. Cletus, stop that, boy. You ain't no cow whisperer. But Ma, I swear this cow is telling me things. Pretty sure she said hurt your mama. Don't know how much I like this cow after that. Now you don't be going and hurting your mama, boy, or your mama whip your ass. Come along, let's get it going. Oops, skipped one. Oh, either way, it's the same thing. ... God damn it, how can he be so resistant to everything? Even hypnosis has failed me. What's that radio voice in my head? I could have just shot him? But where's the fun in that? And that's your taste of the story, as well as your overview of the event system. Please stay up to date, and you will see more of this. Thank you very much.